My name is Brett Welks and I'm with Up and Ready Flight Support based here in Newnan, Georgia. We have a satellite location up in Norfolk, Virginia with another jet that we do training in. And we have L-39s and L-29s in both locations. We do L-29 and L-39 type ratings as well as upset recovery training. The target audience for upset recovery training is really any pilot, but specifically corporate pilots who often get a big break on their insurance when they're doing upset recovery training. What's unique about doing it in a jet versus a prop plane is a jet better imitates the conditions that a corporate pilot would be flying in. One difference being this is a single engine jet. More often than not, they're flying twin engine jets unless they're flying a Vision jet. Upset recovery training isn't a long training evolution. Generally speaking, we can do it in 2 to 3 flights with ground training. But each customer is a little bit different based upon what their background is and whether or not they've done upset recovery training previously. So we treat it as either recurrent training or initial training, and the approach to both is a little bit different. So I'm going to do a walk around here, show you a little bit about what we need to do before we go flying. We start right here at the cockpit and we move forward. The first thing we check is just to make sure that the nose doors are closed and latched, and then we check for nitrogen pressure. Nitrogen is used for 2 things. One is to inflate the canopy seal so we can pressurize. The airplane is pressurized and air conditioned. And the other is to provide pressure for the hydraulic system. So we make sure we have pressure there. Come on around the nose, look for any deformities up here, and check the other 2 side of the nose doors. And then we're looking for the weight on wheel switch. This is a really important component on the airplane. Controls several systems, most notably the brakes. So we have to make sure that this weight on wheel switch is engaged once we land, otherwise the main brakes will not work. So it happens every single time with a first-time student. The first time they land, they forget to push the stick forward and engage this weight on wheel switch, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, "We've got no brakes." At which point the instructor says, "Push forward on the stick and you'll have brakes." It's a moment of big relief. So we're checking the nose tire just to make sure there's nothing obvious there, no chunks out of it. We're checking the strut, make sure we've got 2.5 to 3 inches showing on the strut. And moving on aft, we come here to the inlet. Usually we'd have a flashlight, but we're looking in here for anything that would be foreign object, a bird nest, anything that shouldn't be in an engine inlet. And you're also looking for general condition of the blades. Since we're right here, we duck under the wing and we're looking at the right main tire. Just mainly looking for condition, the same thing that you would look for on any other general aviation airplane, nothing special. But we also take the opportunity to look inside the gear well, and we're looking for any obvious signs of hydraulic fluid leaks. So something that's noteworthy on each main landing gear, you have these 2 hooks. This hook, the inboard hook, is actually the gear uplock, whereas this hook is for towing the airplane. There's a special tow bar that's used on L-39s. Generally speaking, you attach a cable to these hooks on each main gear, and you're pulling from the main gear, and you're just steering the nose wheel. We'll come around this side, and we're taking a look at the brakes, general condition. We also have a brake right here. It's very, very hard to see on the camera. We want to make sure that there's some wear left on the brake pads, and if we can wiggle this and this little puck is still sticking out, that means that we still have some brake pad. These are anti-skid brakes. This is the anti-skid right here, this cable, so we're looking to make sure that this cable is intact and it's not cut. You wouldn't want to land without anti-skid. It would only take about a millisecond of brake pressure to blow the tire. So on the L-39 we have 2 pitot tubes. The right pitot tube is the primary, the left pitot tube is the standby. And one of the mods that people often do on L-39s to make them go a little bit faster, they'll remove these pitot tubes in each wing and they'll just put one in the nose. In fact, our aircraft at the Norfolk location has that done. It's got the pitot tube in the nose. We've got 26 gallons in each tip tank. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it's fed to the engine with bleed air. We'll come on around the aft side of the wingtip. Everything else on the wing is pretty conventional, just like any other general aviation airplane. We're looking for condition. We're making sure that all the bolts are in the hinges. Nothing special there. We've got a trim tab on this aileron. Flaps. look at the aft part of the landing gear. We'll look forward at the belly of the airplane, make sure that there's no hydraulic fluid leaks anywhere. After we fly, we're going to check the oil. So this airplane, unlike most we're used to flying, you can't check the oil before you fly, you check afterwards. Within 15 minutes of landing, you want to make sure that you check the reservoir. So this little tube is the exit air from the APU. So this airplane uses an APU to start. And until the engine start is actually happening, all of the air that the APU is generating comes out of this tube. So if you walk too close to the side of the airplane when the APU is running, it'll take your hat right off. And a little bit more. So we'll keep moving aft, looking at general condition, the leading edge of the horizontal stabilizer. Coming back here, we're looking at the static wicks. That's all pretty conventional. L39s have VGs on the underside of the horizontal stabilizer. They're not used for anything anymore. Originally, when the airplane was used as a ground attack trainer, these things were necessary for pulling out of high-speed dives, just to keep airflow over the elevator. On the race planes, these are generally removed. Trim tab is on the right elevator only, and I'll get to the left elevator in a minute. We're looking inside the aft end of the engine, looking at the blades, looking at anything that looks like it doesn't belong there. But generally, we're looking at the blade condition. Something that you can do in the right light, or if you have a good flashlight, is you can look in this area in between the exhaust and the fuselage, and looking almost as far forward as the aft end of the wing, you can see the APU sight gauge for APU oil. There's no way we could do it in this light, so we'll look in a little hatch down here to take a look at it. This is a Flettner tab. The trim tab is on this side. What this tab does is when you deploy the flaps, it automatically moves, and so it removes the control pressure from the stick as you deploy flaps. So it's actually a really nice feature to have, a little bit surprising for a Soviet era airplane. Static wicks, again, VGs, we already talked about those. General condition on the leading edge. We're looking up top, looking at general condition of the rudder. The trim tab on the rudder is fixed. That's not something that you can adjust in the airplane, so each airplane is adjusted just a little bit to make sure it flies straight. Ground power is here. We would check the APU sight gauge by opening up this hatch. Well, there's actually not a lot of storage on this airplane. There's a lot of hatches. So if you look inside there, this box where I'm pointing, if you can see that, there's a little sight gauge, a little round window on the front of that box. That little brown box, that's the oil gauge for the APU. So we check hydraulic fluid up here. Again, this is one that we only check after we fly, taking an accurate reading on the gauge. Same thing on this side of the airplane. As we come around, we're going to check anti-skid, make sure the cable's in good condition. We're going to check to make sure that we've got some wear left on the brake pads. And we're going to look right up in here for any sign of hydraulic leaks. Looking for 2.5, 3 inches on the strut, and general wear and condition on the tire itself. All right. Pretty normal on the flaps. Anti-servo tab on this side. Just making sure that we've got nuts and bolts in all the right places. And again, left tip tank, 26.5 gallons on this side. Landing light, this is actually a glass dome. We just check that, make sure it's not moving. This is the standby pitot tube, and the static ports are actually on the pitot tube itself. So you just want to make sure that there's nothing, no dirt, nothing obscuring the static ports, which are right here. General condition of the leading edge, and again, we're looking down the inlet to make sure that there's nothing in there that shouldn't be, a bird's nest or any other kind of foreign debris. And you're checking general condition on the blades. So to get in the aft cockpit is a little bit different from the front cockpit. The aft cockpit, which sits higher, you've got an extra step. So we always start off with left foot here, right foot here, left foot here. We've got a handhold, and then we can reach up and we can grab the rail. The canopies on an L39 are very unique in that they're not physically attached to the airplane until you lock the canopy. So when you open the canopy, you've got to be really careful that it doesn't fall off the other side of the airplane. You have to hang on to it. And they're also very heavy. It's physically challenging just because the angle you're doing it from, to stand on the side of the airplane and open the canopy and reach up and over and hang on to it until it fully gets into the stop. To find out more about the upset recovery training or to get an L29 or an L39 type rating, go to upandreadyflight.com, and all the information is there for you, all of our contact information.